Vaughn in Forest Lake, Minnesota. Hey, Devon, what's up?
Hey, Tom. How are you? It's been a long time.
Fine, thank you.
Well, you know, there's a couple of things. One, there was an article that came out in the Washington Post last year that just doesn't get enough attention. It was Dana Milbank. It's called 8 Republicans Picked the Worst Possible Place to Celebrate 4th of July.
Oh, they went to Moscow. Yeah.
Yeah, and John Kennedy. Like some of the most vocal idiots on the side of the moron were actually spending 4th of July in Moscow. And that needs to be really highlighted. The other thing is that I really believe now is the time to call Nancy Pelosi's office, to call your own representatives and Nancy and say, look, it's time to start impeachment proceedings. You can reach anyone who represents you by calling 202-224-3121. And if you want to speak to Nancy Pelosi, her zip code is 94103. Now, I repeated that a few times on your chat room and was blocked summarily by Mr. Peacock. So I guess it's against the rules to repeat information encouraging people to take action?
I don't know, Devon. I'm not in that chat room, but if Nigel blocked you, then probably it was for flooding or spamming the site, and you know, we just don't let that happen. Chad, thanks for the call though. Chad in Port Angeles, Washington. Hey, Chad, what's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Tom. I've been a long-time listener, and this is the first time I've really had time to call because I'm a furloughed federal employee, and that's not my real name, by the way. But I work for the Federal Aviation Administration, and we just received word from our union. We are represented by the same people as the air traffic controllers, that they're planning on expanding the the list of people to be recalled. Up to this point, they've only recalled people and forced them to work for nothing if they meet the legal requirement of protecting life or property in the very immediate sense.
Right.
I, for example, work in aircraft certification, and we approve new airplane designs, and that has no immediate effect if we don't do that. That does, however, affect the business plans of certain large corporations. And my feeling is that this pressure is coming from on high to try and force more of us to work for nothing to try and reduce the impact of this shutdown.
Well, you know, I think he's the chairman of Trump's Council of Economic Advisors, Larry Kudlow, yesterday, the old Fox News guy, came out and said that people like you, Chad, the federal workers who are showing up for work, like apparently you're furloughed, but federal workers who are showing up to work are doing it because of loyalty to Donald Trump. Have you been hearing much about that in your correspondence with your colleagues?
There is no loyalty to Donald Trump. That's a joke. For the most part, it's of course quite the opposite. Even my Republican friends are not feeling any loyalty to Donald Trump.
But Laura Trump tells us that this is so important what you're doing for our grandchildren and future generations. I mean, we've got to have that wall and keep those brown people out.
Yeah, that's of course absurd. Everybody I know is adamantly opposed to wasting money on this wall that the great Oompa Loompa told us Mexico would pay for anyway. And
right.
I do have one other quick thing, Tom, that I wanted to ask you, and maybe you can talk me down on this a little. Ever since Trump took office, an issue that I don't hear talked about, which I believe is part of the underlying discontent that allowed this guy to get up there in the first place, and that is with regards to the massive economic disparity in this country and our trade deals. Ever since he started blundering around with China and Mexico, it seems like the Democrats have kind of gone silent on fair trade over free trade, and to me that's a huge issue that we have to address.
They haven't been silent on it, Chad. In fact, Sherrod Brown has been out there talking about this loudly. The problem is that the media, I mean, our corporate media is owned by large corporations that are involved in interstate and international commerce and hold a very neoliberal perspective. And so when people start talking about protectionism, when Trump started talking about it, it was like, oh, isn't this weird? Let's make fun of him. And they didn't realize most Americans support that. And the Democratic Party has, held the position of, protectionism is a good thing for a long, long time. I mean, Bill Clinton defied that, but he didn't take the entire Democratic Party with him. He only took about half of it. And so, and this is the conundrum for people like Sherrod Brown, is like, yes, we should have tariffs. Yes, we should have protectionist policies. No, we don't want most of our stuff made in China. China just became, or will become in the next 6 months, according to the Financial Times, the largest consumer economy in the world. In other words, more demand, more consumer demand in China than even in the United States. In other words, the richest country in the world. When that happens, Chinese who walk into stores to buy things, who walk into their local Chinese version of a Walmart or whatever it may be, clothing stores, everything that they buy says made in China, which is how it was in the United States in 1980 when Reagan came into office. Everything Sam Walton had big banners in his Walmart stores that said made in the USA. He was proud of that fact. That was one of his slogans, made in the USA. You could go into any store anywhere in America and buy and see pretty much nothing but things made in America because we made things here. Now, 40 years of neoliberal policies, Reaganism policies later, you can't buy anything in some stores in America that are made in America. I mean, go into a Walmart and try and find an American-made product. Good luck. And so the Democrats get this. And know that this has to be fixed. And the problem is that, A, there's not a consensus across the party because of the neoliberal break with this that Bill Clinton took on in '92 when he campaigned on, yes, I like NAFTA, and then, the WTO and all that stuff. But so, A, you've got this schism in the Democratic Party, but B, I think it's really important to note that the people who support Clinton's old position that, it doesn't matter where things are made, we'll just retrain people and turn them into computer programmers, has failed. It has utterly and absolutely failed. It led to the rise of China and the destruction of the American industrial, base, and something needs to be done about it. Now, and therefore, what Donald Trump is doing with tariffs is arguably a step in the right direction. The problem is that he's doing it all under emergency orders as president. And that's not going to help at all. If you want General Motors to build a new factory in the United States because they see that down the road they're going to be able to offer their cars at a lower price than the Japanese automakers can, if you want them to do that, you have to do it by legislation so that they know that 5-10 years from now when that factory comes online, that they actually still have that price advantage. If you do it by presidential proclamation, which is how Trump is doing it, calling it an emergency, it's a temporary measure. There's no major corporation in the United States who's going to build a factory based on a temporary measure. And so Trump's, efforts, while, like I said, I think it's actually a good thing that he's sensitizing Americans to these issues, although he's doing it so badly that it's going to fail, and that's going to make it even harder. Say Bernie becomes president, or another good progressive becomes president. Bernie has held this position forever. I mean, 11 years on this show, every single week, saying we need tariffs or we need a protectionist trade policy. If he were to become president and say that, people would say, "Oh, Trump tried that; it doesn't work," right? And then we're back to the whole, to the Clinton position, the Bill Clinton position of, tariffs are terrible things and we need to get rid of all our tariffs. I mean, when Reagan came into office, the average tariff was in the 20% in the United States. By the time, Obama came into office, it was less than 1%, which is where they're at now. So it's a complex issue, Chad, but it does boil down to some simple principles. Chad, thanks for the call, and thanks for listening to KBCS.